Hi and welcome. My name is Dr. Kevin Ross, and I wanted to just thank you for tuning into this presentation. We've normally give this presentation to larger groups, but we wanted to make it available to folks in the comfort of their own home. So we want to dig into the presentation of 7 startling facts about cancer in the United States. The starting point of this whole thing is just what is cancer? And basically, cancer is the uncontrolled proliferation of cells in the body. Cancer cells really are in everyone, but those cells are normally kept in check by the immune system of the human body. That's what we're designed to do. But what can happen for a variety of reasons? The cancer can start to grow uncontrolled with that. If you look at this graph that we have here on the screen, on the left-hand side there is a tumor that's starting to grow, and that tumor will actually produce the ability to draw blood vessels to itself as it grows. As you progress across this graph, it's called angioneogenesis. And basically meaning that it's the production of new blood vessels that occurs as tumors grow. As the tumor gets larger, it draws more and more blood vessels to itself to feed itself, but in the same time, it is also going to get hotter than the surrounding tissues as it has more blood vessels associated with it. Now this chart on the left-hand side is showing an approximation of cancering double approximately every 90 days. There's a range anywhere from 44 to 1,500 days, but on average, it's approximately 90 days that a cancer cell would double. And as you progress down this chart, you see that the cells grow from 256 to 4,000 and on and on. Down in the range between 6 and 7, between 1 million and 16 million cells. In that range is where it's generally accepted that mammogram can detect a cancer cell. Approximately 4 million cells is what's generally accepted that you would see a cancer tumor on a mammogram. But earlier in that process, as these tumors are growing and drawing blood vessels in themselves, the thermal footprint of that will show up. And depending on the range, it can be up to 10 years earlier in detection because of the thermal footprint of the cancer developing. Now, the startling facts with cancer is that breast cancer is the leading killer of women aged 35 to 54, with over 200,000 cases of invasive breast cancer in women every year. The chances of a woman having breast cancer is 1 in 8. And with that knowledge, there is over 1 million cases of undetected breast cancer right now. There's 47,000 women who die under the age of 50 due to breast cancer. 10% of all cancers affect women under the age of 40. And there's $15 billion, with a B, $15 billion spent on breast cancer research every year. The problem with the current conventional detection mechanisms with cancer is it's very much an anatomical approach. They're looking for a lump, a bump, a tumor, and they're using MRI or an ultrasound or X-ray or mammogram to look for this lump. And in that mode, either you have cancer on the right or you don't. You're okay. There is no in between, but that's with an anatomical approach. With breast thermography, it is detecting a physiology of the breast, not just the anatomy. And that's why they say that you can detect cancer up to 10 years earlier, because you're looking for the thermal footprint of the physiology of that tumor, not just waiting for the size of the cancer tumor to get large enough to feel. And the amazing thing with thermography, there's absolutely no radiation, and it's completely safe at any age. You also understand that with the current technology with mammography, it took up to 25 years for it to be approved as the standard in medical care. But again, it's an anatomical evaluation looking for those structural abnormalities. It has ionizing radiation associated with it, and with the compression, in many women, it's painful. According to the National Institutes of Health, the problem is 80% of biopsies are negative. So they see a tumor, they go in, they cut it out, and there's nothing there. The other thing with the National Institutes of Health is they're indicating that 20% of those negatives are actually false negatives, meaning 20% of those women are then walking around with cancer and not knowing it. The guidelines for mammography are also being challenged. The standard age for a yearly mammogram was just raised. Now, even in the medical profession, they're recognizing that the mammography is not perfect. This report from a patient, they're indicating that a negative report should not delay biopsy if clinically palpable or suspicious mass is present, and 10 to 15% of cancers are not identified on mammography. There's a hole. This is where thermography steps in. Now, this is the very early days of thermography. This is what the FDA cleared for being used as an adjunct therapy to determine or to locate breast cancer. It's a very rudimentary technology. It's basically a mood ring that was pressed against the breast, and then pictures were taken with a Polaroid camera to look for these thermal changes. Well, in the years, technology has definitely changed. There is now thermal imaging cameras, but there's even differences in that technology. On the bottom part of this picture, you see the competitors for the ICI cameras. They use an older technology. If you look at just the quality of the thermal footprints that are on there, it's very pixelated. They're not very specific. The ICI cameras that you see in the pictures above, it's a very smooth picture. The temperature variants are much more clearly defined, and it allows us to pinpoint areas even better than just technology from a few years ago. Now, like I said, initially the Food and Drug Administration has approved thermal imaging as an adjunct diagnostic screening for the detection of breast cancer or other uses. And that was back in originally in 1988. It was reapproved in 1990, and then again in 2001 was the most recent of this. And other journals have published details on thermal imaging, and this one is from the American Journal of Surgery, the effectiveness of non-invasive digital infrared thermal imaging in the detection of breast cancer. Many medical doctors are looking at and trying to promote the use of thermal imaging in the detection of breast cancer. This medical doctor, Christine Northrup, every year encourages women to be switching over and using thermal imaging as an adjunct therapy for looking at breast cancer over mammography. Just recognizing the weaknesses of it. Right now, there's 1,500 hospitals in Japan that regularly use thermography as a diagnostic tool. It's also being reconsidered, fortunately, in the United States. In my opinion, probably not fast enough, but there is research being done on the ICI cameras at Harvard Medical School, Johns Hopkins, MD Anderson, UCLA. There's other ones that are looking at it. At current times, there have been over 800 articles that have been published on breast cancer and thermography. They're also using thermography, though, in other modes, and looking at issues such as stroke, the use with skin cancer, which in the desert Southwest is a huge thing that I think should be looked at much more closely. Heart disease, scoliosis screening, diabetic neuropathy. There's just a variety of things that this thermal footprint can point towards. If you're interested in looking at more of the research, on the screen there is a website that you can go to and look at the papers that have been published on thermography and look at more details on that. I want to head into a few case studies here so you can get an idea of the things that we're looking at with thermal imaging. On this picture there's two different modes that a thermal picture is taken. On the bottom is a grayscale picture that shows blood vessels and that type of thing, and then the upper picture is the actual colorization of those to see the thermal variants that are on there. Now, on here, if you there's a bunch of numbers down at the bottom, zone and minimum and delta and max. Really, what is looked at with these and what's important is what's called the delta T. It's a temperature variant side to side on a similar area. Anything that when you look at a delta T of greater than 2 degrees, it is suspicious and should be looked at more carefully. On this particular picture, if you look at the far right hand side, that says the delta T of a 3.17. That's a significant area of temperature change, and indeed in this case, that left hand breast there with all the bright red is indeed a cancerous tumor that was growing. Now, the grayscale on the bottom of this is looking at the blood vessel association. You see there is changes in the view of that. This gives another example of that idea. The grayscale and blood vessel detection is actually, in my opinion, a fairly sad scenario and a failure of the medical approach on this. This woman that had come into the office, this scan on the left-hand side was September of 2010, and the blood vessel activity on this left breast was deemed suspicious, and she was referred to a medical doctor to evaluate what was looking at this area, and they looked at this. The surgeon said there was nothing wrong here. They did an ultrasound. The ultrasound tech said that there was nothing wrong with that. It was just cysts. There was nothing to worry about. Well, she came in the next year for her yearly follow-up, which is in many cases recommended with thermography, that every year you do just a follow-up to continue to evaluate tissues. This was a year later. This was September of 2011, and as you can see, circled by this big red circle, that there was a progression of the vascularity in this area. Well, as you can see with the thermal imaging up above, this was the thermal footprint. On the bottom left, it turns out at 3.51. Unfortunately, this woman did have breast cancer, and had it progressing for over a year, and quite simply was just missed by the medical profession. There's some additional examples on this. On the left-hand side of your screen, there's a couple points marked number 3 and number 6 on the lower picture. These were 2 additional pictures that were taken, and it turns out that this woman had a lobular cancer right in the nipple of that right breast. This is a picture that was taken of a woman who had a known breast cancer and was using thermal imaging to continue to monitor what was going on with her. As you can see in this left-hand axillary region, 2 bright red spots that are just below the armpit there, and these were referred with her to the surgeon. And these are areas of lymph nodes. And when the surgeon went in and biopsied these, there were 11 lymph nodes that were in the area. They removed all 11. 2 of the 11 of those lymph nodes turned out to be malignant, and that surgeon was actually incredibly impressed that the technology of this thermal imaging was actually able to detect 2 specific areas of those lymph nodes that was involved. Now, these pictures are of a woman who had come in for just a breast scan, and the tech had talked to her about the availability of doing full body screening, and after talking about the possibility, I decided she did want to do a full scan of her body. And when she was turned around and a picture was taken of her upper back, this bright red spot showed up. Now, the area of this temperature was 3.31 degrees difference from right to left. Well, what this turned out to be was a melanoma. And unfortunately not just a melanoma, is actually a very advanced case of melanoma. What it really looks like is with this woman, if she would have been having a yearly full body scan with this, temperature variant would have been caught much earlier, and hopefully not having her in such a crisis situation as it turned out to be in her case. Now this picture that you see is a pretty red and angry picture of a squamous cell carcinoma that was due to and was promoted by the radiation treatment of a lymphoma that was on the opposite side. In this case, this patient, after his experience with the treatment of the lymphoma on the other side, decided not to pursue traditional medical treatment for this squamous cell carcinoma, decided to pursue some natural treatments. And however a person just decides to pursue that is always up to them. But in this case, this gentleman decided to use some natural approaches, but wanted to use thermal imaging to check the progress of the work that he was doing. And so the top picture you see on here was October of 2010, the middle picture was November of 2010, and the bottom was December of 2010. And what you see is just a reduction in the thermal footprint. I can't speak to the effectiveness of his treatment, other than I can tell you that as these months went on, the thermal footprint around that cancer was by all means reducing. This same patient was quite interesting too, because one of the things we noticed when he had come in, that he was shaking. He was really acted like he was having a stroke when he came in. He lost his balance, his eyes were fluttering, he really couldn't stand up too easily. His oncologist had actually told him it was probably a side effect to his natural medication that he was taking for the cancer. We sat him down to take a picture, and on his forehead, on this upper right hand side, you see this very cold spot. Well, a cold spot means that there is a lack of blood flow to an area. Well, as it turns out, that he had the tumor was pressing on the carotid artery that was taking blood to his head, and they were able to show the indication of that restriction of the blood flow to his head with this cold spot on the thermal imaging. This same patient also had a PET scan done of the original cancer on the left-hand side of his neck. That PET scan on the right-hand side, you see the glowing image, that is all the cancer. Well, when you look at the thermal image on the left-hand side, there is an absolute matching of the area, and actually gives some additional extensions away from the cancer where it's at. The PET scan on the right-hand side was well over $2,000 to have that done. The thermal imaging, $200, with no radiation involved with that, and shows the exact same area in involvement in this gentleman. We know that there's over 20,000 cases of cancer each year for women under the age of 40. The problem is the young women with cancer are less likely to survive. The problem being there is no screening that is recommended on a regular basis for women under 40, in this case now under 50, except for feeling for the breast, hoping that you feel the lump soon enough, and pursuing after treatment. In my mind, that's just not acceptable. Everyone agrees that early detection saves lives. But by the time you're feeling a bump, most cancers are stage 2 and sometimes stage 3 cancer, where the survivability is tremendously reduced. When you have a thermal imaging that can detect that earlier, you have a earlier chance of treatment and hopefully survivability from that cancer. Now, if you have $249, you can do a lot of things. You can get your hair colored, get your nails done a couple times, you can drink your Starbucks. Do you realize that the average New Yorker spends over $1,500 a year on Starbucks? It's amazing. Spend $250, that can be diverted. Put a down payment towards possibly stepping your foot through the door at Disneyland. Spend about 2 minutes at Las Vegas and lose that money, or for $250 you can spend it on early detection of breast cancer. That's really what we're looking at with this, and this entire presentation is hopefully having women realize that this is important, that there is a modality, there's a technology out there that can be used in conjunction with other modalities to give an earlier detection for breast cancer. It's vital. It can save lives. What we're offering today is, if you are signing up for a screening today, that we would give you a reduction in that cost. It would be $175 for exam instead of the recommended $250 for the average thermal exam. The only thing that I can ask you is to please take action on this information. You have at your disposal a technology that can help save lives. The only thing is you have to pursue it, and that would be from my heart to your heart. Take this information, look at it, and set an appointment today for you and any of the women in your life that you love. Get a thermal scan, get that technology started, and hopefully save a life. Thank you so much for listening to this presentation. Have a great day.